Hello and welcome to We Random episode 60B. We made it to the big 6-0. I mean, that matches old man Wiggum's age. Anyway, this is We Random. We are recording live on Tuesday, November the 30th. And this is a podcast where we just talk about random stuff. That's pretty much it. B will give you a little bit more details. But B, you know that every night, every time we do this podcast, we start with a dad joke, right? Some kind of stupid joke. Do you know where I keep all these jokes, all these dad jokes? I keep them in my dad base. My dad base. Thank you for that joke, Emily. We'll be right back after this, everybody.
Almost Qualified Productions.
Let's get crazy!
Experts don't have this much fun.
Welcome to We Random, episode 60. I'm Brian. That's Christopher. Let's say hello to all of these wonderful people out here, Christopher. Hello,
Hello,
people.
everybody.
So, as you all who are returning loyal listeners and viewers may know, we've got our Wheel of Doom over there with topics on it. For those of you who are new, we've got a wheel with topics on it. What we're going to do is we're going to spin that wheel. The wheel's going to tell us what we're going to talk about. Christopher's going to swear. I'm going to think about swearing and not swear. And then we're going to spin the wheel again. Is that a good synopsis for this podcast?
I don't always swear.
I mean, come on.
All right, I always swear.
Let's keep it real.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know. So, before we jump right into our wonderful Wheel of Doom, do you have any words of wisdom for the people other than Mr. Rhythm today?
Yeah, so make sure that you get those Thanksgiving leftovers frozen if you still got them in the fridge, or eat them right away because they're going to start going bad here pretty soon. So take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Good one. Did you get the Mr. Rhythm drop going? Or are we still
No,
working on
I'm
that?
still working on that. I don't have a copy of DC Cab, so
Okay.
and I couldn't find the clips on YouTube to steal it. So I think I'm gonna have to rent the movie or buy the movie to get the clips. So
Okay, that's too much.
Yeah,
All right.
so
we'll leave that.
we'll have to keep looking. We'll figure it out.
Sounds good. Well, now that our tummies are all full of that Thanksgiving food and our hearts are filled with joy from having a nice long holiday, let's get mad online. What do you say?
Perfect. I need to swear. And let's first start with Major League Baseball lockout. What's
Okay,
going
so-
on with this, B?
Well, I don't know if this is going to make us get mad online, but we're going to talk about it. So, come 11:59 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, December 1st, Major League Baseball's collective bargaining agreement with the Players Association expires, and for the first time since Sconzi was, 30 years old, that deadline will pass without the ratification of a new collective bargaining agreement. Actually, wasn't Old Man Wiggum the joke of 60? Sorry.
He was,
That's
yeah.
my bad.
Yeah.
But it's 30 years since the last lockout, but MLB is now expected to impose a lockout of all of its players, tabling all transactions until both sides can hammer out a new agreement. So, for those of you who are not familiar with this, the Major League Baseball has owners and then there's a players association, and typically they come together and they agree on the terms of what's going to happen in terms of revenue, what's going to happen in terms of pay, all of these different things. And typically these agreements are 5 years long. So this agreement that they have is now expiring and they have not been able to agree on a new agreement. So what you're seeing right now is lots of fun money being spent by the Mets and some of these other teams because they know as of December 1st, they can no longer spend money. So basically, a couple of the key issues here are that the players feel that their earning power has been marginalized by the over-reliance on analytics and owner indifference to actually trying to compete. An example of this is that while revenues for teams have increased annually, the average player salary has fallen each year since 2017. Now, on the owner side of things, while national TV rights have continued to skyrocket, the owners have concerns about what the long-term viability is of the local TV contracts. also the rise of tanking, which is intentionally losing to procure high draft picks without the intent to win for several years, is something that has become a very contentious issue. So, Christopher, do you feel like I covered that sufficiently to give folks a nice background as to why these folks aren't coming together?
Yeah, I think so.
So, this is a really kind of big and interesting topic because with the owners locking out the players, like that already kind of sets to me, it feels almost like a disadvantage, right? Because to be able to play, then the players are going to have to come back and accept something that it doesn't seem like they want to accept.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I mean, they're talking about how player salaries keep dropping, yet Max Scherzer just signed a contract where he's making what, $43 million a year? $43 million a year to throw a fucking baseball. Okay. It's insane. Like the money that these guys make is insane. So, that just seems a little bit disingenuous to me, but, one of the other big things that they're talking about is arbitration, which is a very complex, stupid way that things work in baseball. But to kind of put it in layman's terms is right now, players are locked up on their teams for a lot of years. They get a certain number of years, 4 or 5 years or something, where you're just on the team. You're just stuck there and you're going to make a small salary. And then after that, you get a couple of years of arbitration, which we've talked about before, where you go in front of an arbiter and you say, hey, I'm worth $10 million. And the team says, no, you're worth $1.25. And the arbiter says, okay, you get $4 million. And you do that 2 or 3 times. And then by the time you're in your late 20s, then maybe you get a chance to be a free agent. And obviously players don't like this. They want to be able to get out there earlier to make that money. And owners want to do the exact opposite. In fact, one of the things they talked about is locking up players until they're 29 and a half years old, which is insane, right? Like it's pretty much universally known that 27 is kind of the magic year for baseball players. That's generally the year when you can expect people to perform at their best, where they've gotten to that point with experience and with age that they're ready. And then once they hit 27, then it kind of starts to tail off. And it doesn't mean that they're garbage immediately, but that's kind of the prime of their career. And so owners want to lock them up well beyond that. And that's just going to impact the amount of salary, right? Because why do I want to give this guy who's 30 years old all this money when his best years are behind him? So a lot of interesting things there. And part of the reason that arbitration is such a huge hot button topic is because teams have deliberately been, what's the word that I'm looking for? Manipulating the arbitration thing. And I don't remember exactly what it was with Chris Bryant with the Cubs, but I think they waited a week and a half to bring him up the year that he came into the big leagues. It was a no-brainer. Like this kid was going to be a star. He was going to be a great player. There's no reason he wasn't on the roster, but they waited like a week and a half to bring him up because that extra week and a half meant if he played the rest of the year on the big league team, he still wouldn't trigger arbitration. If he had played that week and a half or whatever that time frame was, he would have triggered arbitration a year early. So by pushing that off a week and a half and then bringing him up, they basically just gave themselves an extra free year. Well, not free, but an extra year of control over this player that everybody expected was going to be a great player, which he was. I mean, injuries have beaten him up now, but there's no reason why he shouldn't have been on the team. So
no, and
the owners and the teams manipulate this like crazy.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go because I was actually going to bring that up. Like the Brewers have done that for years, like all the way back to like J.J. Hardy, they did it because basically what has happened here is there's kind of a magical formula and numbers where to be eligible to renew someone's contract, they need to play between X number and Y number of big league days of service is what they call it. And generally, and I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but generally there's like 160 days in a season where you get big league service. And I'm just making stuff up to give you an example, loyal listener. But, they need to have 145 days to then move to that first year of arbitration. So like the Brewers, when they see, J.J. Hardy's at 127 days, hey, J.J., we're sending you down for 2 weeks because then when you come back, you're only going to have 144 days of service, which means that, now you have to play this extra year because you only had 144 days of service instead of 145. And And so many teams do this, and that's one of the things that the players get frustrated about, because it takes them, that 2 or 3 or 5 years to hit arbitration, and then that arbitration period is still where they're getting salary suppressed. And like Sconzi said, by that time they're 28, 29, 30, and unless you have these teams that are like money bags, they're not going to get paid what they might want to get paid.
Yeah, it's really kind of a crap system. But here's the rub, though. Here's where you have to also talk about the fact that this is also what lets teams like the Brewers actually compete. Like right now, we've got who all is under arbitration? Pretty much all of our big guys, right? All of our pitchers, I think, are under arbitration. Haters under arbitration. Like a lot of the big time stars the Brewers have right now are in arbitration, or they're pre-arbitration. And as soon as they get out of arbitration, they're gone. Like the Brewers are not going to be able to afford them. So unless they can talk somebody,
Garcia, right?
Yeah, unless they can talk somebody into a team-friendly deal for an extended period of time, they're gone. And even at that point, they're paying Christian Yelich, who's hitting 220, like $250 million a year or something crazy ass like that. And they don't have the money. So even if they got a team-friendly deal for most of these guys, they probably can't sign them. So, it kind of goes both ways. As a Brewers fan, I kind of need this to be in place because it allows us to actually compete with some of these other teams. But on the flip side, I mean, you can see that it's really not a great deal for the players.
Yeah, and it's such a short-sighted because, like you said, now these players are just gone. And it's hard because you look at the different leagues, and every league has its challenges. Like in the NFL, every single player is basically disposable, right? Because, we can just cut this guy and go sign another guy and it doesn't matter. And you have the NBA where they basically are playing with monopoly money, because it's like, the San Antonio Spurs have signed Sconzi to a 1-year deal for $12.5 million. And then you don't even play, but they're just putting you on the payroll because they can, right? That kind of thing. So MLB is kind of on the opposite end of that, but I don't know that I would want MLB to get to the other end where, half of these dudes that the Brewers signed for $600K are all of a sudden costing $6 million each.
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing too, and I mean, we could talk about this probably forever, but let's say that arbitration gets chopped down and players are available to leave their team and go into free agency starting, 3 years after they come into the big leagues. So now you got all these, young 20s, mid 20s players who are out there hitting their prime. I'm sorry, but there's only a handful of teams that can afford these Max Scherzer like deals, right? Like there's not a whole bunch of teams. So what's going to happen when, first of all, you're going to have all these big teams that are going to be loaded with all the superstars, right? But then at some point they're going to hit that salary cap, or the pretend salary cap, the luxury tax or whatever. But what's going to happen when you don't have a choice but to go to the Milwaukee Brewers, who can't afford to pay you more than $5 million a year instead of the $17 million a year that you were expecting? How does that impact salaries overall? I don't know. I just.
Right. Well, one thing that I think is really interesting, and I don't know that they're going to address this, but I think this is part of the root problem, is the basic poverty level that players play at to be in the minor leagues, right?
Yeah, right.
I think that's a big part of this conversation, because a lot of these players, if you're not a first round pick where you're getting that slotted salary, you're probably losing money playing in the minor leagues in the hopes that you eventually will make it to the big leagues where you're going to make money. This is the very backwards, old school, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you got to work hard and you got to show them that you're a person who's committed to the team and all of that stuff, right? Because if we were to revamp some of that and say, okay, so if you are signing with this team, we're paying you this much, and then that puts the commitment on the big league club to make sure that they're not just hoarding random people, and they're actually committing to, okay, we want to develop these guys and move them up and move them through our system, instead of, well, we can just pay you $30,000 for 5 years to be around. Like, again, it's kind of a pros and cons thing, right? So think about, and I don't know what he made. Maybe he was making bank. But you think about a dude like Tim Dillard, right? Tim Dillard played until, like, I don't even know. I don't know how old he is. I'm guessing he's maybe late 30s, if not early 40s. But he had a minor league job anywhere he wanted it. Like,
Right.
and it's probably one of those things where he's not making $3 million for them,
Sure.
you know?
I'm trying to look it up quickly.
Like there's guys who are just like the career minor leaguers, and it's like, if you have that, between that and working again in like, bar industry or food service, like sure, do your passion thing, right? Because you're basically getting paid the same amount.
Yeah, it's you would hope that somewhere along the line people would want to like take care of the minor league players and what they're like. I mean, these are guys who are playing for $3,000 a month or something. Like it's poverty wages really, and that's something players should be fighting for. But let's be honest, do you think Max Scherzer gives a shit about the minor league players? Like
Right.
he's 40 years old. He's making 43 million or whatever a year. Like he didn't give a shit. And there's probably a couple players maybe here or there, but the vast majority of them, I'm getting mine. I don't care. And so I don't know that they're ever going to really fight for that. I just don't know that they will.
So let me turn this topic to a different question before we move on. How do you, Skanzi, feel as a fan about the prospect of a baseball lockout?
I kind of feel the same way that I felt, during the pandemic. We've got billionaires who are fighting with millionaires because they both want more money. I mean, I know that I'm not one who does the swearing, but I don't really give a fuck. I can't give a fuck about that. Like, get your head out of your ass. Sorry, that's where I'm at. I don't really care.
Fair enough. Oh, well, that's why I asked the question, because I thought I'd get a good answer, and I did. So,
Are we spinning the wheel?
are spinning the wheel.
All right. By the way, Tim Dillard has a career WAR of minus 0.5, just for the record. Minneapolis schools.
All right, so we are going to talk about Minneapolis. So, after disturbing trends in student achievement, Minneapolis school officials decided on an overhaul to their school system. They decided to assign families to new school zones, redrawing the boundaries to take socioeconomic diversity and, as a consequence, racial diversity into account. North High in Minneapolis, for instance, now dips further south, including it says a swath, but I didn't want to use it, but I'm going to use it anyway. So a swath of wealthier, whiter neighborhoods. So, unlike previous desegregation efforts, which typically required children of color to travel to white schools, Minneapolis officials are asking white families to help do the integrating. The district believes that integration can deliver benefits for all of its children. As an example, Black children who are exposed to desegregation generally experience higher educational achievement, higher annual earnings as adults, a lower likelihood of incarceration, and better health outcomes, according to longitudinal work by economists at the University of California, Berkeley. They say that these gains come at no cost to the educational achievement of the white students. Other research has documented how racially and economically diverse schools can benefit all students, including white children, by reducing biases and promoting skills like critical thinking. I'm sorry, I said the word critical. This podcast is no longer allowed in Texas. We're banned in Texas, South Carolina, probably Kentucky, Ohio.
They fucking suck.
But, so, back to this. I think that this is an interesting idea, right? Like, my brain goes to the fact that if we think about Milwaukee as an example, now this isn't happening in Milwaukee, but if we think about the socioeconomic setup in Milwaukee, a lot of the schools that are in poor condition and have a lot of the most high need students. If they did something like this, you're going to end up infusing money into those schools, which A, is going to help the building conditions. B, it's going to help the curricular activities because you might actually get textbooks and computers and resources that'll help all the children. Like, I think that that's a very interesting approach because, the school in itself often is what drives civic pride for families who want to invest their money into that community. So I think that's a very interesting approach.
Yeah, I think, I think this is the one that I sent you where you said, what's your angle on this? Like,
No, that was the other one. That was the other one. This one I'm all about. I think that this is, it's going to be hard, right? Like, this is not a simple, cool, everybody be good together. But I think if it works, it'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, well, the other thing, too, that's worth mentioning is there are people hightailing out of this school. Like a bunch of the new families that are being sent to the school, they're saying, no, I don't want to go. And it's really worth saying that this article really shines a really bright light on the woman who is the principal of the school. And she comes across as someone who's super caring and super passionate. She welcomes the kids into school every single morning. She's there to say hello when they come in. Like, this is someone who's bending over backwards trying to do things to make the school better. She brought in a bunch of AP courses, which this school has never had before. Like, she's doing a lot of really, really positive things. And I think that this is, to your point, B, the more that you can make the school students more diverse, it's going to give people a much different and better view of the world. I think it's going to expose people to different points of view and different cultures and all of that. That's all amazing. When you expand or change where that school zone is, as we all know, that school money comes from property taxes. So if you're adjusting it into wealthier areas, you're going to get extra income that can help support the school. All of that is fantastic. I don't think anybody can argue with that. But here's the rub. A lot of people choose where they live specifically because they want to go to a certain school. Like, I've got a friend who's doing that right now, kind of in the market for buying a house. And I want to stay in this specific area because I want my kid to go to this specific school. So now what if they change that and say, well, now you're actually going to go to this other school? So now what do I do?
So,
now I have to drive my kids. I need to drive my kids to another, a half hour every day back and forth. My sister's doing that right now. My daughter goes to a school that's 30 or 45 minutes away from where they live every single day. She's got to run her back and forth. Like this, that's not easy for anybody. Now all of a sudden you're adding in a hindrance to people because of that. Or I have to understand completely that the goal is to raise the standard of education in that school. I 100% get that. But if you just look at it on the base, you're saying, okay, so this school that's testing in the 30th percentile, I now have to send my child there instead of sending them to the school that's testing in the 85th percentile. So what you're doing is you are punishing my child and forcing my child to go to a substandard school. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be okay with that. So I understand the benefits, and I am 100% on board with this happening. But I can also see the other side where I would be pissed if it was my kid, because all the benefits, I could even see the benefits. My kid's going to get exposed to different people and cultures, which I think is great. My kid is going to be going into a school that's got a principal who gives a shit about the children, about the school, which I love. The school spirit here looks like it's off the freaking charts. Like, the alumni love the school. That's fantastic. I want my child to be a part of that. But if their education is going to take a hit, now I have to say, why do I want that?
So, one of the things that I was reading about this story too is that parents can opt out of this, right? And I think that's one of the things that is important, is that if you want your child to go to a different school and you already live in this neighborhood where there's a school right down the block, but that school is no longer in your thing, if you can get your child to school, or if they want to walk to that school, they can go to that school. That's how Minneapolis has their stuff set up, right? So if you want the transportation, like, you go to the school that you're assigned to. If you want to arrange your own transportation, you can go to any school that you want. So, I think from a perspective of that is still helpful, because if you're going to ask low income families, yes, do you want this student to go to this thing? They're not going to have typically the same access to transportation, the same ability to get their kids to these other places if they don't want to be in the school that they're in, right? I think that this is one of those things where it's like we're raising everybody up, hopefully. So it's one of those things where I don't think it's going to be an easy transition. Like you said, there's probably going to be a lot of people who are pissed off about it, but this is the kind of stuff that we need to help everyone and to stop everything being about me, what I want all the time and only me.
Right, but my job as a parent is also to give my child the best possibility for success, right?
So, like you said, though, they're trying to do that at this school. So
sure, they're
what
trying
else
to,
would
but
you be, what else
doesn't.
would you be wanting, right? I guess that's my question.
Okay, great. So you're telling me, as like a politician, that hey, these are all the great things that we're going to do. Well, great. Put up or shut up. I don't see you doing a goddamn thing right now. Like what I can see is that your school is not as good as the school my kid was going to. That's a problem, and you're going to have people that argue that. In fact, there was a whopping total of 13 new students, white students, who came into the school. 13. I don't know what the number was of the number of people that should have been in there, but of all the ones that could have been there, a whopping 13 decided to go. So yes, in theory, I think this is a great idea. I think we need to do it. I think that this is going to help improve more people, right? But you can also see that people aren't accepting it. So how do you get people to accept it? Because I guarantee you, there are people out there saying the exact same things that I'm saying that you don't like very much. That's what people are going to say, and that's what they're doing because they're not even sending their kids to that school. So how do you fix that?
I'm not going to argue about that. You can have your own feelings. They can have their own feelings. And my response to that is then go send your kid to the other fucking school. If that's what you want, then that's what you can do. Like,
okay, but that's not solving anything then. So how do we get over that? So Wiggum had an idea. Give them a year and say you have a year, adjust what you need to adjust, and then this is what's going to happen. Okay, so you're forcing people into this. Well, I can see the pluses and the minuses of that. But how do you actually make this a value to people? Because obviously people don't see a value in it right now. I mean, some people do, obviously. But there's 13 students.
Yeah, the only way you can make it of value is for those 13 students to have a good experience. And then in future years, you may have more families that buy in, right? Like this is one of those things where we can't expect hundreds of people or thousands of families to all of a sudden be like, yeah, this is great. It's a very small incremental change. So, that's, I guess, where my brain goes, is that I can't expect that all of these families are going to just be like, cool, that's what I want. Like, that's just not America in 2021. That's not where we live. That's not what we do. Everybody wants whatever the fuck they want, and that's it, and fuck you. That's basically the state of things that we live in, right? So, if these 13 families have decided, sure, we're going to give this a try, I think that's a win. Now, we have to see how that goes, but I feel like the small incremental changes are where it starts.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I'm glad that I got B riled up there a little bit. Let's spin the wheel. This is a happy story, B. Let's talk about the Milwaukee mobile market.
Yes, we've always been trying to bring happier and more interesting story. Well, some people might not think this is happy because they'll be like, why don't you bring that to my part of town? But the Hunger Task Force in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is partnering with local food store Piggly Wiggly to bring healthy, affordable fruits, vegetables, and more food to food deserts in the city. With the help from a federal grant, the Hunger Task Force is able to offer an additional 50% off of all purchases made on the mobile market beyond Piggly Wiggly's retail prices. The market makes stops in local neighborhoods daily, Monday through Friday. So basically the way that this works is it's kind of like a big van or like a big bus. And there's food on the inside, so you typically have access to meats and fruits and basically non-processed foods. You can get on the bus, you can use a debit card or the EBT or SNAP benefits, basically the, food, basically what people would think of as like food stamps, but like that's not actual thing anymore, So it's a really cool thing though, because it gives people who may not have access to these healthy foods, access to those foods at a discount. So I think that that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. I think this is amazing. So The term food desert was used a lot, and there's just a video on here. If you're not familiar with what a food desert is, I don't have the dictionary definition, but essentially there's a lot of places, especially in certain metro areas, big cities, where there just isn't a place for someone to go and get fresh, healthy foods, right? Like, I take it for granted. I'm sure we all take it for granted. Well, shit, I got a Festival Foods right down the road, and then I've got a Pick and Save another block down, then I've got a Myers 17 blocks the other way. Like, I got 9 million different opportunities. It's also much easier for me to get to those. But what you're finding is there's a lot of areas, especially in downtown areas and poorer areas, where that doesn't exist. There aren't Pick and Save or Aldi's or Piggly Wiggly or whatever big supermarket is in your area. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be in that part of town. It's not a great part of town for them to be in. They don't want to be there. So then what these people rely on are these small mom and pop shops. And they don't generally get really good fresh produce or fresh meats and those types of things. And those are those businesses are the ones that close down really easy because it's hard for them to deal with any kind of economic turmoil. And we just had, COVID that was ravishing us as well. So you get these areas. And the video talks about this, that is very, very difficult for people. And specifically, you're looking at a lot of minorities, people who are disabled, people who are elderly, people who are poor. These are the main areas that these people are living, and these are the people who are most impacted by this. They don't have the ability to, I could drive to a grocery store that's 5 miles away like it's nothing. These people don't have the opportunity to do that, right? And so they can only deal with what's there. So the fact that I don't even know who it is that's putting this on, Piggly Wiggly and maybe the city, but the fact that they're bringing this food to people who need this, and they're doing it at a discount, which is even better, right? Like, you're saving money on top of it. It's amazing. As someone who grew up poor and not eating the best foods, not because we didn't have the opportunity to, but we just flat out couldn't freaking afford it. I think this is great. I think this is amazing. And they even talked to a couple people there, and you could hear how happy it was and how relieving it was that, not only could I actually buy real freaking food, healthy food, it didn't cost me an arm and a leg. Like, this is amazing. And this is the kind of shit that we need to do more of.
Right. Yeah. And this is something that I guess has been around for a while. I just wasn't super aware of it. So that's why I wanted to bring it to light, because it's something that's really helpful to the community. Because if I'm a native Milwaukee, and so I'm definitely familiar with the city. There are parts of the city where there is not a food store. Like, it's all of the corner stores and what folks might call the bodegas and whatever, things like that, right? But they often don't have the fresh fruits or vegetables and stuff. It's all of the prepackaged sodas and chips and candies and all of that kind of stuff. So it's that's what folks are going to buy because that's what they have access to. But it's really good that folks have access to this. And if I'm being honest with you, as you were talking, I'm still sitting over here thinking about the last story, because I'm thinking about all of the other stuff that we've talked about, if these people don't want to be in this school district, then maybe they move, and then the property values increase in that area that none of them wanted to live in, but now the school that they want is part of that district, so we're helping that community rise up. And maybe now y'all can stop keeping the people out of your community that you don't like being in there, because now you don't want to be in that community anymore. So maybe those people actually have some access to fucking food now.
I don't know that I followed all that, but you're very happy with it, so I'm happy for you. Old Man Wiggum posted the definition of a food desert: an area that has limited access to affordable and nutritious food, in contrast with an area with higher access to supermarkets or vegetable shops with fresh food, which is called a food oasis. So I think I did a pretty decent job kind of summarizing that off the cuff. So yeah, this is good news. This is really good news. Like, we live in a country that is rich beyond belief. I mean, Max Scherzer making $43 million fucking dollars a year. And we throw away God knows how much food, which is ridiculous. We got people starving to death and we're throwing away fucking food. Like, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to make food affordable and get it in the hands of people that need it. Like, I cannot tell you how much my blood boils thinking of the fact that there are kids going to sleep tonight fucking hungry. It drives me fucking nuts.
that's the only thing that makes you madder than Max Scherzer making $43 million.
You
You
know what?
really seem upset about that.
Fuck Max Scherzer. Guy's 712 years old and they're paying him $43 million a year. Get out of here. Old Man Wiggum is offering up some durian candy to people. I want to make some sort of really horrible racial comparison there, but I'm not going to do it.
Oh boy.
Lush? What the hell is Lush? Do I know what Lush is? Oh, Lush. I remember Lush.
So, cosmetics company Lush has shut down its Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat accounts, citing its concern about the harms of social media in the wake of the Facebook whistleblowers' allegations. In the same way that evidence against climate change was ignored and belittled for decades, concerns about the serious effects of social media are going largely ignored now, the company said in a press release. Lush's Facebook and Instagram accounts had a combined 10.6 million followers. Now, Lush has done this before because they are pretty common about taking common stands on various social issues, and previously they had quit Facebook and Instagram in 2019 because they were tired of fighting with algorithms, although they then decided later to come back to their friends. So, are they already back, or have they at least kept these deleted for like a week, is my question.
Well, I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but you know, this is a good story. I mean, no matter how, you know, tongue-in-cheek Brian's being and pessimistic he's being about this, this is a good message to send, regardless, right? Hopefully they stick to it. The CEO came out and said, "Hey, we're going to lose $13 million a year," and I'm perfectly okay with that. We'll see what the board and the investors think of that. But like the fact that they're coming out and they're saying, "Look, these platforms have been proven by the platforms themselves to be dangerous to girls who, let's be honest, teenage girls. This is their market. This is their base. Like you're causing the people that we need to care about and our consumers, well, that's our money, to kill themselves. You're fucking with their mental health. We're not going to deal with that. We're bowing out." Like, this is a good story. We need more of this shit to happen.
Yeah, I just hope that they stick with it, because that's the whole thing. It's like, if you get mad and then you just leave and then you go back, like,
Right.
It's kind of just doing it for the publicity at that point, right?
Yeah.
But if they actually stick to it, then sure, like, great, that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, B,
Cool.
where are we at time-wise? We're at
I mean, we're
close to 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably like 30-ish. We can probably get one more in if you want, because we don't have a super long random rankings today.
Yeah, we don't. Is there any of these that you want to get in on?
Not necessarily. Like, I think I've already gotten mad enough for the day, so I don't really have, like, I feel like the intellectual property one is interesting, just because I would want to get your opinion as a, intellectual property privacy expert, but other than that, I'm not really tied to any of these.
I read that article and I didn't understand what it was trying to say. Like, I felt like it was an article, but it was really just a headline and there was no meat to it. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of pulled a couple of things together. I think I used like a couple of articles because I was trying to figure out what was going on.
Oh, that's probably why. Yeah.
Should we do that one?
Sure. I don't know if they got much to add, but go ahead and throw it out there.
All right, so we're going to talk about COVID, because y'all aren't tired of us talking about COVID yet, right? But we're going to talk about President Joe Biden has called on nations to agree to waive the intellectual property protections for COVID-19 vaccines in the wake of a new coronavirus variant in South Africa. The Biden administration has faced criticism over the failure to get vaccines to poorer countries while supplying free booster shots to Americans. So what is going on here is basically Biden is asking companies like Pfizer and Moderna to share their vaccine formulas so that production of vaccines can be expanded by other companies, especially in low-income countries. Those who are representing big pharma and folks who have these intellectual property rights say that if these waivers are granted, that is going to backfire in the next global health crisis, because it will deter people from being innovative if they feel feel as though their intellectual property will just be given away willy-nilly without them getting that Zeke Elliott feed me of the week.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it to drop. It never came.
Oh,
Zeke Elliott, feed me of the week.
So that's kind of why I wanted to get your insight on this, right? Because it's like, on one hand, like, yes, you developed this, like, you should be compensated fairly, but at the same time, this is something that, like, people need, and, like, stop being selfish. I don't know. So it's kind of one of those weird, this is another one of our typical ethics conversations, it seems like to me. I wanted to get your ethical thoughts.
so I'm going to start with these very ethical pharmaceutical companies who are in it to save people's lives and to not make money are angry that if this goes through, then it's going to hinder things in the future because companies aren't going to want to innovate because they're not going to be able to make ass tons of money, right? Because they're just going to give their patent away.
Yep.
Now I want to read you a little bit of a story here about Frederick Banting. Do you know who Frederick Banting is, B?
I did not.
In 1923, he discovered insulin, and he refused to put his name on the patent. I'm reading this off some website, so I hope they're really accurate. He felt it was unethical for doctors to profit from a discovery that could save lives. Now, his co-inventors actually sold the patent to the University of Toronto for $1 because they felt that this medication needed to be affordable and out in the masses. Now, I'm pretty sure that these billion dollar pharmaceutical companies that don't want to have their IP sent out are making a shit ton of fucking money off of insulin. That's my guess. I don't know for sure that they produce insulin or make insulin or however you do the synthesize insulin, but I'm suspecting they probably do. So basically this is another great big rich motherfucker saying, hey, I got mine. I'm not going to let you get yours. And let me just say, and I'm going to say this not quietly, even though I'm quiet right now. Go fuck yourself. That's what I got to say about that. This is some garbage. So are they wrong? Maybe, maybe not. I think the fact that we live in a world where companies are saying, hey, we can't save people's lives because if we save people's lives, then the next time that people's lives need saving, we might not want to help save their lives. What the motherfuck are you talking about? What? Like, this is the dumbest shit I ever heard. Not to mention the fact that, you know, all the rage this weekend was over this new variant that's out there. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that the reason these variants keep spinning up is because the virus is allowed to run wild. And why is it able to run wild? Well, it's because people aren't fucking vaccinated. Now we can talk about the assholes in the States who aren't vaccinated, but that's a different story altogether, Mega Man 4000. But there's a lot of these places that just don't have the vaccine because of all this shit that's going on, right? Like, we need to be able to get the vaccine to these people. Even if we look outside, let's make this completely personal. Like say we only care about ourselves. Well, I want to be able to go to the fucking bar. So we need this virus to stop mutating. So let's get the virus, the fucking vaccine to the people that need it, right? But let me be completely selfish about it and say it's all about getting me to the bar. If that gets people vaccinated so people stop dying, I'm fine. I'll be the asshole and say it's all about me getting to the bar. But we just need to get this in the hands of people that need it. And the fact that these pharmaceutical companies, which are about the worst fucking companies in the world, not named Facebook or Meta or whatever the fuck they're going to call themselves next week, is just icing on the cake.
I'm glad that we talked about this because that was kind of what I was expecting based on your rich people arguing with rich people. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like it's a different spin on the should the Tom Brady guy give back the football, right? Like, you know, it's different shades, right? Because again, these are rich people arguing that they want to stay rich when they could help people, which that becomes an ethical thing. Like, in theory, if you're in healthcare, you should want to help people, but there's just as many people in healthcare who don't want to get vaccinated and all that as there are people who want to get vaccinated, right? So
these are the same fucking people that charge like $100 or $200 or $800 a vial of insulin. These are the same fucking people that, raise the price of an EpiPen by like 800%. So there are fucking people out here dying because they can't afford an EpiPen. Like they put profits literally in front of people's lives. I don't give a goddamn what they have to say about anything.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to say more because I feel like we need to end it on that. And now it is time for
the not
random rankings.
So,
I mean, this is really going to kind of turn into random rankings, right?
Well, it kind of is.
So this week, we wanted to do a random rankings, which is going to give you, loyal viewer and loyal listener, an update on our next few weeks here on We Random. So we are going into the most wonderful time of the year, and we will be doing our podcast next Tuesday on December 7th. Then we'll be doing our podcast on December 14th. And then after December 14th, we will be taking a well-deserved break through the end of 2021. We shall be returning to your ear holes and to your monitors on January 4th of 2022. But we're not going to leave you adrift in that time. What we're going to do is we are going to recreate Sconzi's favorite new saying, re-random. What we're going to do is we want to post a re-random episode during our break time, but we need your suggestions. So what we want to do, we want to pull together some of the greatest hits from 2021 on this podcast. So we have already started a list of wonderful options, and we need you, loyal viewer and loyal listener, to help us out and tell us what you've enjoyed from this year. So as an example, I'm going to pull up my list. I've already made a list of some of our most wonderful moments. So as an example, episode 23, our random rankings meme draft, where we spent like 20 minutes just talking about memes. Also, we had Sconzi's favorite, episode 46, where there were not one, not two, not three, not even 4 or 5, but 6. I thought you were going to hit me, but you didn't hit me with it.
6 fucking people. No, it's funny because Wiggum and Emily both said 6 effing people at the exact same time. It was great.
Yep, that was actually the first one that I added to the list, just so y'all know. We've also added things like when I just did the Ric Flair woo, and when Sconzi said that the podcast needed to be triple mature, and the time that old man Wiggum tried to bust me because I said a topic full of wheels, things like that. So we were going to add to this. We're going to clip it all together, and we're going to send it out because that's what we do.
Yeah, really. There's a podcast that I used to listen to. I don't really get to listen to it much anymore. I don't make time to listen to it. It's really my fault.
Sconzi? You're talking and I can't hear you.
Yeah, I accidentally muted you. There's a podcast that I listen to or have listened to, and every year they do. They spend the last couple of weeks of the year. They kind of take some time off, and they do like a recap video. Let's recap some of the, the best moments of the year, kind of thing. I have not kept close enough tabs, and I don't know that I could go in and pick out like individual little moments, but if we're able to pull up some of those, great. Otherwise, I think what we'll do is we'll look for maybe specific topics that we want to talk about or specific topics we want to revisit, and then kind of pile them together in kind of a compilation to say, hey, we're going to take a couple weeks off and let you guys enjoy your holidays without us bugging you, and for us to, get a breather. So I wanted to open up to see if there's anything else that jumps on your mind besides the 6 effing people that everybody remembers. The funny thing is I'm the one who said it, and I hadn't really thought about it much, but that wasn't the first, we came up with this idea and I was like, okay, I need to think of something. And then Brian says 6 effing people. And I was like, oh, that's right. We need that one. Leslie Nope winning the Island Random Rankings.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, I forgot about that one. Okay. We'll have to get that one. There was another one that I sent Sconzi from I'd have to go back and look, but where he said the F word like 9 times in like 90 seconds.
Oh, boy. Leslie Nope. And Emily, that was actually the first one I thought of. was B getting upset. God, you're drinking your water and you got the max headroom thing. So I was just going, it's funny. Anyway, yes, it was one of our short videos of the week, one of our clips. It was the one where B went off about the Wisconsin GOP, about returning to school or COVID. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Wisconsin GOP COVID. Yeah, that was a good one too. Yeah. Anything else that jumps to mind with y'all? And you can obviously send us ideas over the course of the next few weeks as well. It's not definitely tied into this, but we figured that this would be an opportunity to share an update on the schedule with everybody, both those of you who are live and those who may listen or watch later, and also solicit some ideas in the moment if you had any. I don't know that we need to hang on and wait forever on this, but we can give it a minute or two. In the meantime, B, do you know what your extra point's going to be?
I mean, my extra point is just, hey, we all had a...
No, you don't need to do it now. I just want to know if you know what it is.
It's not an extra point. It's just kind of me talking to the people.
Oh, Wiggs, that's a good one too.
All right, what has Wiggs got for us?
Highlights from Ellie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
That's a good one. Yeah. Cool. All right. I think we've got some good ones. Please keep sending those to us, because this is really for you guys more than it is for us, right? So let us know the things that you want to revisit, things that jump out at you, and we'll come up with some stuff as well, and we'll get that sent out, and hopefully that'll be good. Also, if you haven't, go check out the short video I made on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up. It's my first YouTube short. It was the re-random clip. It was pretty funny. I think everybody probably saw it. Anyway, now, B, how about you tell us your not extra point?
So, my not extra point for this week is just to welcome you all back after the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope for those of you who celebrated, it was great. For me, it was wonderful. I loved having my 5 straight days off of work, not worried about anything except for doing stuff that I wanted to do around my house and spending time with people that I enjoyed. So that was really great. I think it's always important that we take that moment to recharge and get back to it, because life is too short not to. So thank you for being with us as always, and we'll see you these next couple weeks. And then we got this re-random for you. It's coming.
I can't believe re-random's actually becoming a real thing. This is hilarious.
Sure is.
So I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, about family, but really just about people that are close to us or you or me. So over Thanksgiving, I did have the opportunity to hang out with my parents, who I don't see very often. We celebrated on Saturday. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I don't know if that was pre-podcast or post, but we celebrated on Saturday, and my dad really wanted me to come and watch football with him on Thanksgiving. So I made the hour-and-a-half trek to go hang out and watch some football. And then I got to see him again on Saturday for Thanksgiving for our celebration. They drove out this way, and we hung out, and it was a good time. And it just it brings me back to a message that I think I've talked about probably once or twice before on this podcast, but it was a TikTok of all things, where there was some sort of an interview going on, and the guy asked him, said, your parents are probably getting up there in age, they may only live, say, 10 more years. It's like, how often do you get out to see your parents? And the guy's like, maybe once a year. So, okay, so you don't have 10 years left with your parents. You've got 10 times left with your parents. And it's just mind-blowing to me, right? Because, my parents are getting up there in age, and they've got their own health things that they're dealing with. I don't know how much longer that they've got, but when you put it into that kind of a perspective, right? Because it's not like I'm there every weekend. I could be if I wanted to be, right? But I'm not. So it makes those moments when I do get the opportunity to spend time with them that much more important. And that's why the second that my mom reached out and said, "Hey, Dad wants you to come watch football," it took all of 2 seconds for me to say, "Absolutely, I'm there, 100%." And it was great. And we sat on the couch, we talked bullshit. We argued about football and everything else, and we had a great time, and it was awesome. So I guess that this is just me saying, take a break, take a step back, take a breath, and think about those people in your lives that maybe you haven't seen recently, or you haven't spoken to, or that person that you haven't reached out to say, hey, you know what? I love you, man. And make sure that they know that, and visit when you can, and keep in mind that everything sounds and seems limitless, but it really isn't. And I think it's important that that's something that we keep in mind all the time. But this time of year, it always comes up even more for me. So that's what I got, B. You want to wrap us up?
That's fair. I sure will. And what you shared is why I send you 1-minute clips where I get everything out, and then I go back to being thankful that I have these things to plan. But for now, you can find us here on YouTube every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We randoms only here on Tuesday, but you can find Sconzi here on Wednesday and Thursday. You can find us on Twitter, Landmark MKE for me, Sconzi over there for Sconzi, AQ_PROD if you want to find our fun video clips. You can always find this podcast in your favorite podcast app under We Random. And if you want to find Sconzi, as always and forever, at least until he gives them away, you can find him on Amazon Sidewalk.
No, you can't. Is that all you got,
All right,
B?
y'all. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you again, and we will talk to you next time.
See you, everybody.